friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today to talk about the first three chapters in the Great Ordeal. It's the third book in the Aspect Emperor series. We are back after a hiatus. Good to be back, and it feels like putting on that old, comfortable winter hoodie that you just love to put back on. It feels nice to be back. So, we'll be discussing the first three chapters, and it is my first time reading the Aspect Emperor series, and I am happy to report that I am not alone in it being my first read anymore. You know that Katerina is in uncharted territory, just like I am. Daniel, will you kick us off with an introduction, please?
I'm Daniel, and I guess I'm the only one that is not in uncharted territory. And I guess we'll see how this goes.
I mean, I'm just happy that I can say anything and no one can tell me I'm stupid, because I officially have no idea what's going on or what's going to happen from this point on.
It's a freeing feeling. Yeah, it's nice. So how did it feel to come back to this world? What did you guys think?
Well, I was really excited. Like, I didn't really know what to expect of this book. I've done my best to avoid spoilers. I still know, like, there are some things that I know will probably happen, but for the most part, I really have very little idea of what's going to happen. And I got super pumped when I read these first chapters. The first chapter in itself, I think it's something that we could spend like just 2 hours talking about it without problem. Um, but even the second one, the third one, there's a lot of exciting things happening, and I feel like some things that I've been missing in the last two books are back. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
Mm, they were. It was a good beginning of a book. Our Scott Baker always ends his books with a big bang, so the next book can't start off as fast. But we're already in the SMNet's like in the middle of a war, basically. Akamian is in Ishwal as soon as we figure out what he's doing. Sorwell is in Ishterbint. Everyone wants to know about the non-men, so everyone is in a place where we're going to get to learn more about new stuff. So I think it's a more exciting start than other books previously.
Yeah, I feel like we're finally we're finally getting to the place where we've been trying to get to the whole time. Like, it kind of feels like, well, I mean, I guess it makes sense that the first two books were a way of getting us to this point, and like this is where I think most of the really exciting things will start happening. Or that's the feeling I'm getting, at least.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I'm
What
curious to hear. Yeah. Go
what
ahead,
are you
Daniel. I'm sorry.
guys most excited to hear about in this new book?
Ooh, good question.
Probably the non-men. I mean, we already kind of talked about it in the previous episodes, but I'm really enjoying R. Scott Baker's take on the elves and immortality and what it does to its species. So I'm really, well. I mean, we'll see how things turn out, but I'm really interested to learn more about Ishtarbenth and its inhabitants, and also the
And Wamwa,
Mwama.
it's a funny name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the non-men are really interesting. I'm looking forward to that, and the arc. I want to know more about that. There was something in the what has come before section that I'm not sure if it had ever explicitly said before, but on page two, and if this has been said before, then correct me if I'm wrong, but um, they and their hoary knees, the outlaw schoolmen learned that damnation, the burden of all sorcerers bore, need not be inevitable. they learned that the world could be shut against the judgment of heaven. Had they mentioned that about sorcerers before?
That's kind of been like one of Kellis's main teachings since he took over the three C's. So whether that's true is still up for debate, I guess. But that's like Kellis's what he said in order to be the prophet who can use magic, and also that whores aren't damned anymore either. Though there's some passages in this book that would imply that sorcerers are still damned, and so are whores.
Had they mentioned that that they realized that before? Because I don't remember them. I know Kellis
Well,
has said that, but
so the way I read it, or I thought it referred to the consult's plan more than Kellis's teaching. So because from like what I remember, they found the Ark, they entered the Ark, they talked to the Inqury, and then probably the Inqury told them about their plan to close the outside, which would prevent them all from, or protect them all from damnation. So that's what I thought that they were referring to in that section. Yeah.
That makes sense. That was describing the like initial non-men encounters, I think, when the Ark first fell.
yeah, when they first entered.
Yeah, there is another thing in the what has come before that I thought was never really explained, and that's the first Great Ordeal. So I think like they mentioned in the past, like we've heard that there was some other Great Ordeal that was summoned, I think, by Calmomus, the Calmomus with C. But I don't know if I knew that it failed, or if I knew that, I don't know that I know why it failed. I don't think we ever got an explanation of that. Or am I wrong, Daniel?
I don't think we have at this point either.
Okay, so it's just one more question.
Yeah,
But
nice. The answers are out there. Maybe that has something to do with the maybe dead Anisarimber laying in the field that Prosperian, was that the slave's name?
Yeah, I always try to pick up small details, and what has come before. There seems like there's little things hidden sometimes.
But yeah, so what do you think of the prologue? Or was there anything specific that you thought was interesting or stood out to you?
I think it's the last line in the prologue was one that I had. Oh no, it's not the last line. There is a line in the prologue. I believe this is the prologue. Yeah. On page 30, history murders the children of weak rulers. Something that line stuck out to me. But as far as the rest of it, not too much other than repeating kind of what Mathanet had told Esmenet about he isn't what you think he is. Kind of going over that again.
Yeah, one thing that I found interesting is to see how Esmenet now thinks of herself as a historical figure, or someone who makes history or is part of history, like someone about whom people in the future will read and learn about. And I found it, I mean, it's a nice contrast, or I think it's good to think back to where she started. If you remember, like in the first book, where she's just a prostitute and she's always thinking about the world outside of her bedroom and the world outside of her city, and she kind of wants to be part of these events. She wants to be part of like the big things that are happening, and now she's one of those people. Like she's part of history, and it's kind of like be careful what you wish for, um because she does not seem very happy with where she's ended up.
It's almost like she's starting to see herself like that, but then when it comes time to make those really hard decisions and ruthless decisions that are you have to make, sometimes she's almost like reluctantly, kind of, when she has to decide what to do with the woman who disclosed her location and caused all this, and she was hesitant to act because she reminded her of her. It was almost like seeing her where she came from, and she was hesitant to do anything about it. But when you're in that position, you have to, right? Because then she looks weak to all of her people.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
that conversation with Ellie was fun.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like she can't really ever leave her past behind, but she can't really stop being an empress or a ruler either. Um, and it's, I mean, the conflict within her is one of, I mean, I think she's like one of the best characters that R. Scott Baker's written, if not the best, because like the trajectory that she's like gone, the journey that she's went through, and the layers to her character are just like she does like there like she's not necessarily my favorite character. um I don't necessarily find her chapters to be the most exciting, but as a character on her own, I think she's wonderful.
She's really fleshed out, and she's been through a wide arc of a story with lots of challenges. I still remember her almost getting stoned to death by a bunch of little kids. I remember her dreaming she could wear boots.
Just come a long way. It kind of makes me a little sad because I know some people are turned off by what happens to her in the first book and the darkness, and they stop reading the series, but they miss out on such a great character that she develops into.
And also the fact that she is a mother, and in some ways it makes her incredibly weak. I mean, especially in her relationship to Kelmomas, but then in some other ways it also makes her incredibly strong. Like her strength of will, I think, is something that has been consistent about her character, um, from the first time we meet her until today.
I mean, for Kellis to choose her for his seed, I guess. Um, I mean, that says a lot about her for him to choose. Not that that's something to be proud of. I think you know what I mean. This comes out wrong, but she must be something special for him to choose her to bear his children. That sounded weird.
It made sense.
Okay.
We got
Okay.
it.
We get it.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I also thought in this prologue, like the juxtaposition between Esmnet and her whole like empire just falling apart, and all she cares about is her kids, and Kellis, his like is turning away from the whole empire in order just to go to Golgotha for some reason. So they're both just like seemingly casting away everything just for something that doesn't seem worth it.
You think Kilmomus is not worth it?
I don't know. I never hung out with him. Maybe. I'm sure you'd win me over. He's good at that. But if I would have seen him sitting on that throne with like matted hair and just crusted blood everywhere, I don't think he would make it back from that. I would never like kill Momus.
It kind of makes me wonder if everyone is like, is it just because he's a child and so like everyone just assumes that he's innocent, or like it never even does it never even occur to them that he might be not an innocent child, or is he like really good at hiding it? Because like as you said, like he's there in the throne, like blood all over his face and in his hair, and it never occurs to anyone to ask like how it got there, like what had to happen in order for him to end up in this state. um that he might have eaten someone and that's why there is blood on his face, like eaten someone raw. um
Someone's. There's more than one person
yeah.
buried in that hole.
um and even like Esbedette, when she finds him or when she's looking for him, she thinks to herself that he is of all her children, he is the one that's most like her, that he is the least Dunyan of all of them. And I'm like, no, like why can't you see that? It's so obvious.
I kind of wondered if they saw the kids as everyone sees all the different kids as kind of not a threat because they're so wrapped up in Kellis, like they're so concerned with Kellis or what he thinks or what he's doing or his strategies, and they kind of forget about everything else, that he kind of flies under the radar. But yeah, you'd figure that being covered in blood and you might raise some eyebrows.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, you might be right in that they were born a lot later than the other kids, so Callus probably did not pay too much attention to them, or to Calmomas and Sarmomas. Um, but like, I mean, they know what the other kids are capable of. Like, why would you assume that Calmomas is any different?
I think he's a good actor, like you were saying. Even the part where he's like laying there just pretending to sleep while he's just thinking about how he wants his mom to come in, and he's just waiting for her, and he can hear all the noises and he knows exactly what's going to happen, but he just needs to lay there and breathe like he's sleeping. So he's just good at playing the game, and he thought that everyone who knew was gone now except for his dad, but now he knows Theliopa is smarter than he thought, I guess, in her weird dresses.
Yeah, I think Theliopa is next. His
Oh.
next victim.
Really? Oh.
Well, she's like right now she's the only one who knows what he truly is. So I think it is in his best interest to get rid of her as soon as possible. And he doesn't really care if like Esmenet will lose an invaluable advisor because of her dying, because he doesn't care about the Empire.
Not. It would also serve to further isolate us minute too, getting rid of her. So kind of serve two purposes there. But Espenet seems really. She mentions that she would be whatever her sweet little boy needed her to be: protector, provider, comforter, slave. So she drink the Kool-Aid.
I mean, even Theliopa says it, that she can't reveal Kelmomas's identity to her because Esmenet is so dependent on him, and would probably just break down if she found out that her sweet little boy is a cannibalistic monster.
Yeah, the truth would destroy the Empire or something.
Is that how the Empire is destroyed?
Is the Empire destroyed?
Kellis seems to think it's doomed to fail.
Maybe he just wants everybody to think that. You never know what Kellis is thinking.
It's true.
Well, we sort of got a glimpse of what Callus is thinking in the first chapter. And I mean that was that was one of the things that I didn't realize how much I missed those parts. Like having at least some insight of what Callus was planning and his to see how he views people. Like that was a big part of the first trilogy, and we haven't really. I think we only saw him very briefly in the Judging Eye, and maybe in the White Light Warrior. Um, but it's been a really long time since we've been in Callus's head.
Is he any less confusing than he was all that many books ago?
Well,
There is a head on a pole behind you.
Yeah.
I read that about at least like 5 times for sure. And like do you have any theories, Steve? Like or was that perfectly clear to you?
I have no idea if that was. Yeah. I did read it a few times over too, and I thought I was misreading it or I missed something, but that was one of my questions for you guys: is what did I miss there, or we're supposed to know?
It was pretty metal. He said, what, countless dead and these grotesque things with bladed fingers just ripping open babies and slurping out the insides. What did it said? Teeth ringed with 1,000 silver needles or 1,000,000 silver needles.
Yeah,
But
so I mean I have some theories.
Go for it.
Okay. So I think, and if I mean I have, I can be totally wrong, and that's fine because I don't know. But I'm thinking that is a description of the outside. Because I mean, it kind of like it's similar to how it's like described in the Tusk, like the demons, like I don't know, eating people, um, and also like it's told in the present tense, which I have come to associate at least like with the gods or with something that is related to the outside. So I guess like my theory, like we know that Kellis allegedly has been able to leave the world and step into whatever is beyond. So I think that's either like a memory from when that happened, or maybe it's like him visiting the outside in the future. Also, with the caveat that I don't really think that the past or the future exists in the outside, so it's probably just happening at the same time. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
What was their conversation? It was, he says, we have pondered you, and then Kellis says, I have never been here before. And then they say, the living shall not haunt the dead.
Yeah, and so where do the dead go? They go to the outside, at least. Well, I don't really know where you go if you're not damned, but if you're damned, you go to the outside, I guess. So if Kellis is still alive, and he's in the outside, I guess you can interpret it as him haunting the dead.
I think there was enough to suspect that. That's a good conclusion, Katerina.
Okay, thank you.
And at the end of the last chapter, Kelmomus is thinking about his dad, and he's even thinking, but they say he's been to the outside. And then he's like, I don't believe that, though. So little Kel can't fathom it.
Yeah, I think Kelmomus is maybe too concerned with like terrestrial things. I don't think he has much capacity to think. beyond his like little corner of the palace or the city.
Notice that throughout this, especially the second series, Daniel gets quieter and quieter.
But okay, but it doesn't solve the question of what is the head on the pole.
Yeah. Well, there's also that other. There's a couple of, when everything happens at once, the past, the present. So I thought maybe he was doing something. He was able to see everything at once. But I didn't even think about. Yeah, I was a little bit lost in that part. So
I guess the head on the pole would probably be him or a totem that will get him back to his position. Because the outside is everywhere all at once. Like, seemingly. In a giant lake of fire.
So it would be something like an anchor to the what do you call like the real world or
the inside. We'll just call it the inside.
Okay, fine. I'll call it the inside.
Or we can go Stranger Things and say the above and the underneath.
Okay, I'll just stick to the inside and the outside. But there was another quote where they were talking about damnation, and someone who I assume is Kellis, he says that where did I had it somewhere. He says that he does not fear because he doesn't fear damnation. No, that doesn't make sense. You have no fear. You refuse to drip fear like honey because you have no fear. Because you fear not damnation, because there is a head on a pole behind you. So, is it safe to assume that for some reason Kellis does not think he is damned? Or if he is, that maybe he'll be able to avoid the outside when he's dead? If he's even capable of dying, I guess.
yeah, I don't even know if he is.
I guess we'll see. Who knows currently what that means? He also refers to the god as an it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he says that poor Proas, by the way. He says to Proas that God is nothing human. It wants nothing. It loves nothing. It doesn't care. It is beyond care. And Proas is like, like his last 30 years of his life just shattered to pieces.
Yeah, that little part about the Dunyan and their little leaf falling ceremony to see who gets to sire children. That was an interesting little bit. They still have some crazy beliefs, it seems like. It also said at the beginning of the entire series that more often than not they knew like where a leaf was going to fall as it fell. Every single leaf that fell out of the tree, they knew where it was going to fall.
So you're saying the selection's not actually random? That like knew who is, I don't know. Like, do they know like who they're going to select to ensure their reproduction?
I don't know that they necessarily do, but something maybe does. The same way that we're kind of knows all the history of all the people, and like that part where the lady escapes and has the kid, and then the kid ends up being like related to the White Luck Warrior somehow. Do you guys remember that part? I don't remember exactly what happened. She escaped and had a kid, and then that kid ended up like, I don't know, living. Wasn't supposed to live, but somehow it lived, and then it became a useful tool later.
And there was an earthquake.
It all seems so random, but how random is anything?
Seems random, but
I will say, as much as I have complained about Proyas in the past, I do relate to him in this chapter and in these scenes, or at least the transformation that he's going through. I do find very interesting. Just like to see someone who was like one of these, like probably like one of the most loyal servants of Kellis, and someone who so strongly believed in Kellis and in his teaching, and to have him now realize that he's been lied to the whole time, and it's Kellis who's telling him, like that makes it so much worse. Is that it's Kellis who like himself is telling him, no, I've just been like, I've been just feeding you bullshit this entire time. I mean, I can't help but feel bad for him. Like I still think he's a fanatic, but I do empathize to some extent.
I don't remember when that was, but at some point I told you I suspected Proteus would grow on you. Give him a
Well, it's
chance.
happening.
Just give poor Proteus a chance.
Yeah, and even it happened actually even more so when he had the conversation with Saban. Which, by the way, I think I was on the right side of history.
The enemy, or the enemy of your enemy is your friend, huh? Is that what Proteus is?
Yeah. You know, like Proyas is like the kid who, like, in college, he does all the homework, he studies for all the exams, he gets straight A's, and then when he leaves college, he finds out that all the other kids that were not paying attention, that like did not go to school, did not obey the teachers, that they're now doing so much better because no one cares about like how well you would follow the rules, but everyone cares about the experience you have, and that's exactly like Proyas and so on. Um, and I can definitely relate to Proyas more than to Soban in this scenario.
it is worse with that Kellis just gives him, just kind of like lays it all out for him. Like, yeah, this is it makes it worse than hearing it directly from him.
But Kellis also does say he talks to the gods when he calls them it. So maybe Proteus still doesn't know what's a lie and what's not a lie. He knows that there were lies, but he still seems to believe in something. It ended with what Kellis telling Proteus that to the gods the world is a granary and we are the bread. That's pretty dismal.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see how much he breaks him down, or what the purpose is. There's still no clue why. It just seems like to Kellis it's necessary that he takes away all of his beliefs and makes him believe something new, to cast him like a new child.
Yeah, that is definitely something that I also want to know, because it seems obvious that Khaled has a plan. Like he has a very good reason for why he's doing this to Proyas and to Soban as well, I guess. Um, but I have no idea what that goal is. Like what is he preparing him for? Um, why would he? Why, like, when he spent this entire time making him believe? Why why does he now need? What does he now need him to do the opposite?
It seems like it's for something more meta, right? Something like soul or God oriented, not like he wants Proyas to turn on him and kill someone for him. He could just have told him to do that and he would have done it. He needs to like break him all the way down for some other reason.
Yeah, and it's all the worse for Proyas, because I think, like, Proyas, just as a person, I think he is someone who is like very compassionate, and he like wants to be a good person. And so, like, no, like, considering how many, like, thousands of people he has had kill in Callus's name, to now find out that it's all been he's done it for the wrong reasons, is all the more difficult for him. Whereas I think that Soban does not really care. He doesn't care if he's done it for Callus or if he did it just because he could. So I think he has it's much easier for him to deal with this twist of events that Callus has introduced to them.
Saban.
I'm happy. Like, I've missed this as well. Like, I'm happy I can finally, thrash Saban. It's been a long time since I had an opportunity.
Maybe
Now
he'll grow on you too.
Yeah, now him and Proyas are going to be buddies, it looks like, because Kellis told Saban to help little broken down Proyas. He'll be waiting for you outside.
I don't know. It seems difficult to imagine that the two of them would become friends. I think they mutually despise each other pretty strongly. But we'll see. I might be wrong. They might change. I mean, they are changing, I guess.
There's something to bond them together. That maybe that'll be enough for a friendship.
Yeah. They need a 9/11 event to unite everybody.
Well, they already had one that made them eat strang meat, even though that's considered, or used to be considered, complete heresy.
And they're not holding back with eating shrank either. They're going all in with the shrank.
Yeah, it talks about the different ways they eat it. You walk around the camp and you see like what looks like human legs and human arms around, and nobody cares. But the upper class still like want to smash it down into hamburgers, so they don't have to think about it.
Yeah, there seems to be like an entire industry is developing around the processing and preparation of strang meat. I'm just wondering if it'll have any side effects.
There was the one guy that said, "My soul, it grows more disordered," and he's like arguing with his cousin. His cousin's telling him he's being a wussy and stop. And he says he feels like he shrinks in proportion to who he was the day before. And the other guy makes a joke that He's not shrinking. He's eating all the meat.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious if anything happens to the soldiers because they've been eating all this strang meat. I mean, it could be just like psychological. Like I would also feel weird if I was eating something that looked like a human foot.
It's technically GMO, though, right?
Organic.
And who knows if they tested it on humans before they started releasing the shrink? Who knows what the effects on this modified non-men meat is going to be?
Yeah, I was gonna say
We
it's more
already
like,
know when you burn it down and put it on your tongue, it'll help you and make you emotionless.
I wonder if someone tried burning the strang yet.
There's piles and piles of bodies to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, I think they also are burning parts of them. So in theory, like you could get some GMO kiri if you wanted to in the camp.
Huh.
Yeah, that was interesting how it talked about like how at the beginning of the war the ordeal men like once chased and massacred this rank, and now they hunted them and worked a grisly harvest, it says. So they're like harvesting them for food now. It's like a resource to them instead of their enemy.
Well, this I guess if it was reversed, then the strength probably would have no trouble eating the men.
Well, they'll all get raped. I've read the chapters. Everyone gets raped. It's sad, but it's true.
Oh gosh.
Those rank are terrible. They're born from a race of lovers.
And the non-man though.
Yeah, it's a bad mix.
Yes, it is.
So when Kellis had the head on the pole behind them, and he was talking to these guys, what were those guys? Were those demons? Were those the same people that other school of magic like brought out into the real world? Or
Well,
were
did
those
you-
the gods and we are the bread, even the little babies?
Do you have any theories, Steve?
I thought it was like god figures, or that's kind of but I don't know. I was guessing.
Yeah, I'm probably also leaning more towards them being the gods because I think probably in the White Lug Warrior, the what was his name? The Kisharim. I think he talked about the gods basically like feeding on souls, of the people who passed to the outside, and so I don't know like how I'm not sure like how literally we should all just take like I don't know if they're actually like eating the people, but at least in like more like an abstract way.
I feel like he offered Kellis some, didn't he? You just say, "Don't you want some of this, baby?"
Yeah. Well, yeah, but they also talk about how like, or I think Kel says it that like human emotions are kind of like meat in the outside. Where is it? I think I wrote it somewhere. No. Yeah, he says that love is meat, hope is meat, courage, outrage, anguish, all things are meat, seared over fire sucked clean of grease. So it does sound like they're sort of feeding on, like, not necessarily on the physical form of the people there, but on like their essence or their emotions or like such psychological states.
So if the gods work a grisly harvest and we're their bread, then does that mean anyone who like is a good person and their soul isn't damned is like a spoiled wheat plant? Because they're not going to harvest them. They're only harvesting the bad. If there was no more bad people, they wouldn't be able to suck clean all of the horribleness they seem to like.
I don't, maybe if you're like completely emotionless, then there is nothing to harvest. So they just don't bother. But then people like Mymara certainly love and hate and have all kinds of, I think, thoughts that would not be considered pure. So
feastable thoughts.
yeah. But then I mean I think it kind of all comes down, like we've already, I think we've had this conversation probably a few times, like what are the rules, like who determines the rules, what behavior or what actions make you damned, and what actions are what actions are redeemable. I'm still waiting for that list.
I don't know that we'd even be able to give that to you at the end of the series. You may not know.
This is true. And then we had Moingus and Saraway, and I think it was Saraway kind of questioning how much Kellis really knows. She says, "Our father is wrong about more than you know. The world overmatches him as it does us or anyone. He simply carries the battle deeper."
Well, I I was also wondering if Kellis, like I was wondering to like does because Soriel, like he thinks that they can't see how much he hates them and despises them, and he thinks that's because of sort of like the mask that Yadwer put on his face, or Prosperian put on his face when he smeared him with the mud. Um, but I mean, is that true? Like, does he actually hate Kellis and Serwa, or does he still believe in the Great Ordeal to the extent that if he had to choose, he would fight with them against the consult? So I don't know. I'm not so sure anymore. And maybe Kellis sees through all this. Like maybe he knows that Yatwer has been manipulating Sorwheel, and Kellis just played along. But maybe he is actually blind. I don't know. It's all very ambiguous, confusing.
And in these chapters, it sort of looked like Moingus can see that he's lying more than Saraway can, just by his rage at them. And then he gets compelled and has to go clean himself.
Yeah.
Saraway still believes that he's telling the truth, and that maybe their dad's wrong, which could imply that maybe their dad sees something in him. And Saraway thinks that he's wrong.
It is very tricky.
And then they need him, seems like they need him to be an enemy. Otherwise, their whole pact might end up bad. They all might get killed. They seem to just get taken as slaves right at the end of this, right? They all.
I mean, I have some questions about this. Like, first of all, if they needed an enemy, like if they actually wanted someone who was a true enemy to them, why did they bring Sorwheel with them? Like, why did they choose the alleged believer king to come with them? Like, they could have just picked someone like Duranga, who clearly hates or at least dislikes the Anasarimber and is not a believer. They easily could have taken him. Would have made things much easier. So why bother with Sorwheel? That's one question. If you have any thoughts, feel free to respond.
I think because they feel like they can control him, or he has some other purpose that they're guiding him to the destination that they want. I think they kind of see him as being weak, and that they can control him.
And I'll say we talked about coincidences before, ever since Kellis ended up on a grave that Nair found him at so long ago, and how much could be coincidence. This one Yatwarian tool ends up being the one that gets sent to Isherbinth. Did Kellis know, or did the gods just suggest it?
I mean, it is true that he sees a stork right before he enters Ishtarabinth.
Yeah.
So I guess the goddess might be involved or may have had something to do with him going to Ishtarabinth.
Kind of got the impression that Moingus planned to kill Sorway. I'm sorry, not Sorway. Sorwheel. And Sorway convinced him not to. It kind of felt like Moingus was going to kill him, but didn't because of Sorway that she stopped. Or am I wrong in that? That's kind of the impression I had.
I think you're right. I think he's scared because they needed him not to love them by the time they got there. And they tried everything they could, and it just didn't seem to work.
But is it worse? Is it worse if they show up with an enemy who isn't really an enemy, or if they showed up without any enemy at all?
I'd say
serve some purpose.
Nobody knows.
And that leads me to my second question, sort of. Why do the non-men attack them? Like, is it because they are actually working with the consult, and so when they first proposed the Niam, that was just a ruse, and they wanted to like capture Callus's children? Or is it that they just forgot that that's what they agreed on, because we know that their memory isn't the greatest? Or is there something else?
I don't think. Just shrugs. Daniel just shrugs. I kind of felt like the consult is using the non-men somehow, and the non-men, like you said, they're not the most stable people around, so maybe the consult is manipulating them too in some way.
I don't remember who said it, but we did learn that Ishtarabinth is in alignment with the consult. I think it was the Synthes talking to someone, but I don't remember exactly when they said that. They did say that, but
I think it might have been Nelgikas who actually mentioned it when he remembered something for once. But I don't know. I feel like they might have just forgotten that they proposed the Niam in the first place. And then these like three people show up in their house and like, what are you doing here? We have to arrest you.
Or it's just part of the process. The Niam is them taking 3 people as basically slaves until until they can trust him. So how good do they treat the Yamwa? They seemed like stricken children.
So I wonder, are they Mwama just our Scott Baker's take on the hobbits? Like, are they like degenerate hobbits? Is that it? Is that how I'm supposed to picture them?
I never thought of it that way. I don't know. That's a good point.
I mean,
They
some
are.
of them even call one of them even calls them halflings.
I think of them as much more slender than a hobbit, maybe the same size. It talked about one of them holding Sorbil's hand and it being like a little kid's hand, but just calloused. A little callous kid's hand. Then it talks about how they're all like kind of Down syndrome from just all the inbreeding that has been happening. Maybe it is. His take on elves is pretty broken. Maybe it is the hobbits. They don't seem to have any fun though.
I really enjoy this part, and I can't wait to learn more about Ishtarabinth. It's like really. I just like how like this is like a perverse way or perverse like rewriting of Lord of the Rings in some ways.
I think in the second series, especially, he leans in pretty heavily on some of those, like in the Judging Eye. There's a lot of Lord of the Rings kind of vibes.
Yeah, different take. Significantly different takes on the tropes that J.R.R. Tolkien created that everyone else just uses.
It's like a funhouse mirror of those tropes and those ideas.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly enjoying it. It's a lot of fun to just think of like what it will come up with next.
When they're looking at Ishtar-Bent, and it talks about how Sorwell's like amazed that they could make it, and I think Moingus says endless life, endless ambition. That's a good description of maybe what the non-men are.
Yeah, I really like that quote. Though I would say that maybe like it seems that especially when they actually arrive at Ishtarabinth, that the place is pretty run down. Like it, I, I don't really see. It doesn't seem like they have much ambition left. The non-man. It
Yeah.
seems more like they're themselves are also degenerating.
I think Moingus says, does this look like a place where a sane king rules? The whole place is like in shambles.
Yeah.
And I guess we're going to find out soon.
Well, yeah. I'm very excited.
I'm surprised you got through these 3 chapters so quick, Katerina, because you're a little bit ahead of schedule this time. No procrastination this time.
Well, I mean, I did read them on the plane, and then I reread them when I got back from my vacation. So I feel like I might even be over prepared this time.
Wow. You're being inconsistent now. What's going on?
But I mean, the note taking part of it is that's pretty time consuming, I will say.
Yeah. Did you have anything else in your notes for chapter 2?
For chapter 2, probably not. I just had one note about shame and like how big of I don't know if you can call shame a character trait, but it's such a big part of like what Sorwheel has been experiencing since the beginning of this series.
A motivator. It's a motivator.
Yeah, I think that's fair way of describing it. Yeah, like it's such a big part of like what motivates him and what drives him, and I don't know, like I can't, like on one hand he is kind of weak, like he doesn't, he's not exactly like an inspiring person, like he doesn't usually react very well to like things happening to him, but at the same time like he's been through a lot. So can you really blame him that he's turning, like can you really blame the, that he's so like full of hate and just, I don't know, not really holding it together?
I guess I didn't think of it that way until you said it. But yeah, I'm kind of rooting against Sorwheel though. I don't know.
Oh.
I know you like that character.
You're a Yatwer hater or just a Sorwell hater?
Just a Sorwheel hater. I don't know. Something about that character. I'm sorry, Katerina. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I mean, it makes it more fun when
he does in some ways remind me of the redheaded girl from the Game of Thrones.
Sansa.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I think of that.
They're my only comparisons in like a some kids that go through some terrible circumstances in a semi-dark world. The first time I read this book, I had no comparisons. I just kind of felt bad for Sorwell. He lost his parents. He's taken away as a slave, basically. He gets chosen as another slave by a god. I guess depends on the term you want to look at. He's a chosen one, but it's pretty much a slave, right? If you watch how the White Luck Warrior lives his life, he appears like a slave in all aspects to me. Knows where he's going, knows what he's got to do, he doesn't mind. He never has any dreams or ambitions.
Yeah, I think there's, I mean, yeah, like I do agree with that description. And I guess like going back to the comparison with Sansa, I guess you can say that both of them, both Sansa and Sorwheel, had pretty sheltered upbringing, and then the reality just crashed into them. And I mean, each of them deal with it their own way, but yeah, they're kind of, they don't really have much agency, and I mean, they both are kind of trying to find it as they're fighting whatever is happening to them, and try to escape through the manipulation that, in Sir Wheel's case, like it's mostly the goddess, I guess, but also the Remember, and Sansa's, it's all the politicians and oh, I already forgot the name of the city. Gosh, I really need to reread Game of Thrones.
I thoroughly hated Sansa's sections. They were so hard to read in those books for me, but Sorwell is not the same. It's highly readable.
I think Sansa is the one character in Song of Ice and Fire that I change my mind most dramatically about. Like I also found her incredibly annoying in the first books, and then gradually over time she became one of my favorite characters in the series. So it'd be interesting to reread it now with the, knowing where she sort of ends up, at least where she is at in book 5. Would be kind of interesting. But yeah, I think like that's a really interesting comparison. So thanks for bringing it up, Daniel. I don't think that Sorwheel is like a complete slave to Yatwer. Like he sort of I mean, he doesn't have much agency. I do agree with that. He sort of like goes with the flow of the events, I guess, but at the same time there is still like certain
His
and
inner dialogue is complete like free agency, seemingly. He's having the struggle, and you get to see that he's having the struggle. Whether his actions have free agency is still, I guess, up for debate. But in his head, he's debating it, which makes it seem like he's got free agency.
yeah, I think that's a really nice way of describing it. He is still like very undecided, and it's quite ambiguous about whether he like wants to be Yatware's chosen one, or whether he thinks that he should still join the Great Ordeal, even though Kellis has murdered his entire family and holds his native city captive and has made him into a slave, basically.
R. Scott Baker's really good at making things hard to tell. Like, maybe Saraway is seeing his true face. Maybe he really does just love the Anasarimbers. Maybe the goddess is hiding nothing, and he only thinks they are, because he thinks that he hates them, when really the greater him, if we're like comparing the lesser Proyas and the greater Proyas, the greater Sorwill knows he loves them. The lesser Sorwill is in denial. Or maybe the goddess is hiding it. It's still kind of up in the air, even though we've had a lot of chapters about it. So is Kellis's goodness or badness, I think, is kind of still up in the air after 5,000 pages or something. And I think that's hard for an author to do, is just to leave things, to give a lot of detail and still make it a coin flip as to what the truth is.
Yeah, I mean, that is like his characters are one of the things that makes these books so exciting and intriguing to read for me, for sure. Like, if nothing else, if I had to choose one thing that I would, praise about these books, like if I could choose like one thing, I would choose the characters. But and also I think, yeah, like, yes, it's very ambiguous, but also Sorwheel, like he's the kind of guy who can change his mind in a second. Like literally, like he was in love. He was in love with Serwa until like that moment, and then now he's like, she's like the most hated person in his universe. So,
but he still loves her. He even like alludes to that when he has to grab onto her and he's mad at her. He still wants to grab onto her really bad, even though he just hates her guts.
So she's kind of right. He still loves her, yeah.
And then he realized that he kind of got played. They wanted him to see that. Maybe there was a purpose. Maybe they're Dunyan, and the Dunyan don't do anything without a purpose.
Yeah. This makes sense.
It's really convoluted. I'm kind of losing track of like who's has intended what to happen and who's actually making things happen, and like if people are doing certain things, are they doing them because they decided to do them, or is there some like god or an entity or a Nesarimber that's like secretly manipulating them? It's just too much. It's too complicated. So I don't trust anyone or anything or anyone's motivations. I don't trust what anyone's thinking, because even if they're thinking, doesn't mean it's actually their own thoughts.
It sounds like you're having an existential crisis. I hope you don't think that the Anusrimbers are trying to do anything to you in real life tomorrow when
Um,
you're going about your day.
I mean, I basically have an existential crisis every week, so um, it just happens this one's probably triggered by reading this book.
The section to start chapter 3. There's a couple of things. They in so this the ones that I have highlighted is the mother sheds her tear, gives what has been given. He watches himself cast what is broken, sees the aspect emperor stumble, then vanish beneath the mother's heel. And they also reference a peach, not that kind of peach, another peach. Um, that, but the peach is already in his hand. And there's a reference to a peach later in the chapter. Kind of, all these things are happening at once. Kind of some Lovecraftian stuff. It's kind of the way those sections strike me. But
Yeah, I think is it safe to say that the peach that's mentioned in the first scene is the same peach that Esmenet throws him later in the chapter? Um, the other stuff. So okay, I have another theory.
I love all these theories. It's good stuff.
Well, I can finally freely theorize now that I don't have to worry about spoiling anything. Um, so, okay, might be complete nonsense, but I think there is going to be an earthquake in Momum. Because, like, when he talks about like the mother devouring the city or something like that, I'm thinking Yatwer, she's the mother, she's the goddess of the earth. What can, like, how can she devour anything?
Hmm.
So maybe, like the earth opens or something.
Like Mother Nature, kind of.
Yeah. And I don't know, like that's something that just struck to me when I was reading that that first little bit from the Wildlife Warrior.
Why hasn't she struck down Ishtar-bent? The whole mountain weeps. It's the weeping mountain.
What was it, weeping of joy or I don't know. And does well, maybe she needs disturbance. Why would she need to strike it? We know she hates the NSRember. She hates the Empire. She wants to destroy the Empire. So if she destroys Momim and the Empress and all her the entire administration of the Empire, that'll probably solve her problem of getting rid of the Empire.
So you're calling the downfall of Esmenet a natural disaster, not finale.
Well, natural. I guess it depends on how we define natural. But yeah, I think Esmenet, Kelmomas will die in an earthquake.
Eliopa?
I think it talks about Theliopa disappearing in some like blackness or darkness, if I remember well.
Yeah, it is a thin and oddly apparelled girl joins their company, Deliopa, whose subtlety has been horned into simplicity. Someone who was there when it happens, he explains to her, even as he watches her vanish beneath crashing black.
So I think earthquake also could mean a tsunami.
Oh, yeah.
So
That would explain the
maybe,
ripples.
and I mean the palace is kind of pretty close to the sea, I think. So maybe maybe Theliopa dies because she gets crashed by a tsunami.
And they do reference standing on a green hill, which would mean that they're above ground, so they're above the water. That would be it. ripples against all creation.
How are you liking my theory, Daniel?
I was trying to gauge his reaction. He's good at hiding his reactions. I don't know if we're close or not.
It's a decent guess. We know that he seems to see lots of future things all at once, and it's hard to pick out the interpretation. It gave us one example with the peach because we seen that play out. The question get asked and the peach get thrown. But maybe the darkness is Kelmomus. What do you think the White Luck Warrior sees when he looks at little Kelmomus?
I have not given that any thought.
I mean, you could be right, but R. Scott Baker likes to play with words. Like he's really playing with meat now. Lots of things are becoming meat.
Meat.
And there's multiple peaches now, not just the description of peaches, like actual peaches.
Yeah, I did wonder if there is any particular reason why it is a peach that she throws to the White Luck Warrior. Like, could it not have been any other fruit?
Was there? I think it was in the last book. They talk about another piece of fruit. I forget what fruit it was, but there's a piece of fruit that they mentioned in one of those.
Yeah, I do remember
sections.
that. I feel like that was maybe an apple. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I have no recollection.
it was interesting how he chose to eat the fruit. Do people do that in places of the world, really? They just grab the peach and lift it above their head and just squeeze all the juices into their mouth and not really eat it. I always ate the peach.
A peach is every time we talk about a peach, I just can't help but think back to Call Me by Your Name, where there's also a peach scene. If you've seen it, you know.
I haven't seen that one.
Well, you can add that to your 24 films from A24.
Oh, it might be on my list.
I think it's an A24 movie. I'm pretty sure. But okay, then I won't spoil anything. But yeah, like peaches are very sexualized fruit for some reason.
For some reason.
Yeah,
but
who knows why?
But yeah, I do agree. Like there are a lot of like abstract things, and people are being compared to edibles in these books.
Edibles for the gods. Or the demon, Sifrang. Whatever those things that just are relaxing in a lake of fire are.
Yeah, maybe one day I will know what the difference between a god and a Sifrang is, but until then.
For chapter 3, I miss Mathanet. I miss him. He got a raw deal. It was not cool. Not cool at all.
He almost seems like one of the most level-headed people in the series by the end of him.
He put in a lot of work this whole thing, and the way he went out was just so depressing. It's probably the worst death, I think, in the whole series so far.
I mean, depends on how you define worst.
Well, I mean, Surway was a rough one too, and she was pretty helpless. I mean, she didn't have as much control over the situation. She had no control over the situation. So yeah, maybe not.
I would argue that Mathanet's death was pretty quick and painless compared to some other deaths that we've witnessed in the series. But
Doesn't doesn't
yeah.
in Rao try to like jump off the thing and they like scalp him, like grab his hair or something?
what? I don't remember that.
I feel like that's how he died. He died like trying to run away right at the end, and he lost his hair.
I mean, I don't remember anything about hair, but it might as well be. I remember he jumped off the balcony.
Yeah, I think they were holding on to him when he did, so some of him stayed.
I should probably rephrase. When I say worst death, I don't mean like the worst, like less most painful, but I just mean the character that I miss the most.
It's bizarre, but I'm really sad for you.
I would say if I could have one character still be alive, it would be Cleric or the crazy son, the bad son in Ralitas.
Mm.
Oh yeah,
But
that'd be a good one.
but Cleric would be cool to have alive still.
What about you, Katerina? If you can bring back one character, who would it be?
Mm, that's hard. I mean,
Ikari, one of the Ikaris.
yeah, I would probably be one of the. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if if it was Comfus instead of Fanile who was trying to recapture Moment?
Hmm.
But I mean, either Comfus or Nayor are my obvious answers.
Oh yeah, I should have guessed that. Should have guessed Naor.
Naor was
But
fun.
I also I mean if I had to choose one of the secondary characters, I think Eliazar's was kind of fun.
Wasn't really
Like
a
he was
choice.
not a good dude, but he was fun. He was entertaining.
There aren't many good dudes in this series though, so it's hard. It's hard to choose. I think you have to choose more of who would be fun to see what they would do next, or who would continue their story.
Yeah, Comfus. I think that's my final answer.
He's probably sitting in a lake of fire, having the marrow sucked out of him.
Maybe well, if he had a soul though, which I'm not sure. Well, like remember that Callus did say that his soul was damaged or somehow deformed. So maybe he's been deemed not edible.
If
And
if anyone was not edible, I think it was the captain. His soul bounced. That's how unedible he was. Hit the lake of fire and it just bounced back up.
yeah,
Or Kellis brought him back from the outside, maybe, since he's been there.
maybe he was like a leech, and when Callus was there, he like just got stuck in his pants or something, and Callus brought him back by accident.
Kellis doesn't do anything by accident.
Fair enough. But I mean, it must be pretty difficult to navigate the outside,
Yeah.
even if you're Callus.
He does still need a head on a pole behind him.
I love Espinette. I thought she was going to die in this chapter. I thought that was it for her.
Really?
Yeah, I thought she was going to die.
It was close. It was a
Yeah, it
close
was pretty
one.
close.
She didn't realize till it was too late.
But I like that everyone questioned her or kind of would try to, like, what would Callus do, basically, or Callus, his outlook on things or the decisions he would make. They all wanted her to do whatever he would do, and I like that she did. She still made the decision she wanted, even though she kind of got lucky at the end of the chapter. I feel like things just kind of worked out for her. Like it wasn't she kind of wasn't necessarily her. It just things worked out.
I mean, was it like, is her losing her only sorcerer a good outcome for her? I guess she's alive, so that's good.
Mm.
Her daughter also seems to be alive, so that's points for her. But I think, I don't know. In my book, it was kind of a fiasco.
Wasn't that the last Ishwaram though? Or am I wrong? I feel like he was also the last.
But is he dead though, or did he fly away? Because that was also kind of unclear.
I think that he got arrowed to death because he looked at the Kore as it was coming and it took away his defensive thought.
Oh,
And then
is that
it
what
talked
happened?
about arrows jutting through his shoulder, and then something like pushed him over, and he toppled. The ground beneath him gave way.
Death came swirling down.
It
Well,
didn't.
it
It
didn't
didn't
say.
say as much.
Yeah, I think he might still live, but he'll probably need some time to recover from getting shot by like 3 arrows in a row. But yeah, I was a bit confused about why he didn't have any defensive wards. So you're saying that he, like, the Kore basically like negated all of those? Is that what happened?
His focus, like at the moment she threw it, he looked over, and I think he just barely dodged it. But him dodging it took away his inutterals or his ability to stop that. And I think the Kore like kills the defenses it goes through.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
kind of the way they describe it, it's like an invisible shell, and it shatters the shell. If that makes sense.
I
I assume he died because they were going to be able to kill the finale. So if I assume everyone who came there died.
I never related to Esmond more than when she threw the Kore and missed. Because I was always so bad at throwing balls and anything in sports. Like my eye hand coordination is so bad that if it was me, I would have, like, it would not have been like close miss. It would have been like 5 feet away. Oh, that's, I don't know how big feet are. Sorry. But it would have been like a miss by a long, long distance.
I like how you said Esminet's still alive, so points for her. Like, oh, I guess she's still alive. I guess it's okay.
I mean, it could have, as you said, like, she could have died. This could have ended up a lot worse.
Because there was a point there where she almost was preparing for it. Like it was almost like, okay. So I thought that was it, but it was a fiasco, definitely.
Points to finale. They played the Dunyan game better. It seems like they kind of have a snare approach now, or a nair approach to like think about what the Dunyan would do before you even do anything at all.
Yeah. Well, I guess also now that both of the sorcerers both of the sorcerers are dead. The nothing's really like the nothing's really changed. Like they're still sort of even. Like, no one's really come on top because of this encounter.
I think they said 8,000 to 30,000 estimated.
But they have walls.
Still a big disadvantage. That's a lot of. Let's see, yeah, but yeah, having walls is a big bonus.
And it sounds like the siege towers are already built. So we're gonna see what happens soon.
They're knocking down trees.
Sorwill's like walking into Ishtarbenth, so we're gonna see what happens soon. Akamian is at Ishwal, so we're gonna see what happens soon. There's no traveling we need to do, except for the Great Ordeal. They're still walking. They're just reinvigorated because they have food now.
I'm definitely more excited to walk with the Great Ordeal than walk with a Kamian again. I mean, like I'm very curious to see what they found at Ishwal, and to find out what's happened to the Dunyan and who has destroyed Ishwal. But please, please, let's not go into any woods anymore. I'm really over that.
You'd rather him travel in a inner mountain mansion? That was more fun than endless trees and hordes of shrank and a captain just slitting the neck of any weeper along the way.
Yeah, that was definitely more fun.
Or the desert would be better, right?
I mean, I'm being realistic here. I don't think you'll find many deserts in the north, though there are some cold deserts as well, like the Gobi. But I haven't checked the map, but I don't think there is a desert, unfortunately.
Katerina, were you surprised to find out there was a skin spy?
What? I'm surprised now. There
The
was a
last-
skin spot?
The last stone hag, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh wait, are we talking about the White Leg Warrior now?
No, hold on. Give me 1 second. Let me find the page before I say something stupid.
You're in a safe environment here, don't worry.
I doubt that.
I think
Okay.
when the arc fell, it kind of turned 100-mile radius into kind of desert. It killed all the trees and leveled the land. That's desert-ish.
Okay. I mean, it's been 4,000 years. Shouldn't some vegetation have returned?
Maybe. I want to reference something when it talks about the Basharag and basically anything that comes from up there, but I'm gonna wait.
Okay.
Their description. There's some weird descriptions of these crazy monstrosities.
Okay. I also say I'm a little bit disappointed with Maithanet. I'm sorry, Steve.
What?
Ooh.
Because I mean,
Shots
you would
fired.
think, like, as Danye, that he would plan ahead and like try to secure the defenses of the city in advance. Because, like, he had to know that Phenile was coming, but like it seemed like he basically used all his resources to clear the city, and now poor Esmened has like no army, no one close to Mumem to help her and save her from the attackers.
Well, two thoughts on that. So first, in defense of Maithanet, he is only half Dunyan, so give him a break. And if he was using his 50% Dunyan, maybe this was the plan all along.
Wait, so you're saying the plan was to die,
Well,
or to have the city captured by Phenile?
Maybe that has to happen. Those
I'll say
Dunyan are silly
I'm a
people.
bit skeptical about that.
in Maithanet's defense, it's like all Esmenet's fault. She's the one that caused the city to be in ruin, basically, and then she's the one that also killed him in the end. So she deserves to have no defenses in his regards. He's probably happy. Oh, you were gonna kill me? Fine.
Well,
His-
technically, I would
His
argue
blind spot.
it's Kalmomus's fault because he's the one who made Esmenet do it. and he's the one who killed the the mother's. No, she's not the mother's. I don't know, the yacht where priest is. You know who I'm talking about.
All right, now I'll just say it's Esmond's fault for having Kelmomus in the first place. Then she should have just loved Acamian, and Acamian shouldn't have went to try to read foreign books. It's all about his obsession with books. That's really why we're here today.
Okay, I'll defend Akami and say that Kalos is a manipulative monster. And this ultimately is all his doing.
Well, Callus is only doing what he was trained to do. He doesn't know any differently. So
Yeah, he still might be the savior. You don't even know. He still might be trying to save all of humanity. If he has to just like let a person or two go, it's fine. It's like the AI cars. Do you hit the old lady or the little kid? If you're gonna get in a wreck and you have to hit one of them, how do you decide?
this is programmed into AI cars.
It's a moral debate.
Oh,
Like there might be a situation where the car needs to either swerve left or swerve right, and someone will die in both situations. So how does the car decide like which life is more valuable?
As it's kind of the trolley problem, I guess, or an iteration of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that it should just kill both of them. Anytime one person, you gotta kill one or the other. Just kill them both.
just go in the middle and hit them both.
Yeah, I guess it saves you a lawsuit. So I have some more questions. Um, who do you think killed Sankas, the counselor to Esmonette, who was secretly trying to return to the palace?
I don't know.
Your options are the Finale, probably, or Kelmomus. Seems like the two logical possibilities. Yatwar, maybe Yatwar.
I if I had to guess, I guess Colomus, but because he's a monster too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, who? Yeah, besides Kelmomus, who just, I guess, enjoys killing people. Um, who else would be interested in sabotaging or weakening Esmonette and removing one of her few trusted counselors from the scene? I don't know. Maybe Esmonette's right. Maybe there is some intrigue going on that we don't know about yet. But like Kalmomas was also my first choice until he said he didn't do it, which I'm not sure if we can trust.
Yeah, we don't know if Theliopa can tell or not. It seems like she believed that he didn't, though. So if she has as much of her father's insight, then maybe he's telling the truth. Seems like she can see little Sammy inside of him now a little bit.
Yeah, they it seems like Sammy is still hanging around and whispering into ears from time to time.
Yeah, or I mean, Kalmomas seems to think that he's talking to Sammy, but is he really? You know, that's the question, I think. But I really like the scene between Kelmomas and Filiopa. That was like, I mean, I think it was like one of the first times, maybe maybe except for this, for when he talks to Inrelatus, like it was one of the few times where someone actually sees him for what he is and talks to him as he probably should be talked to and treats him the way he should be treated. Um, it was so intense, and I was like really anxious to see like whether he was going to kill her on the spot or if she was going to tell Esmonette. And in the end, she decides not to. But she knows now, so she's a threat to Kamoa's.
Yeah, she put a target on her back. She maybe should have just kept that information to herself.
But he mentions say nothing, appear weak, and then there's he could stab her now if he wanted. So,
It talks a lot about how weak her flesh is, how much more like the mother than the father it is. Kellis must have some hard skin. Maybe a sword can't even cut it. Maybe Dunyane's skin is different too.
I had not even thought of that.
I assume non-men, like everything about them is a little bit different, even if their limbs are sort of the same. And the Dunyane were, 1,000 or 2,000 years in the making, so they're probably not fully human anymore.
I mean, it is true that Maithanet did talk about the Danyane bones being harder.
Yeah, harder to break.
The normal people's bones. So I guess that their skin also might be thicker or less easily pierced than a regular person's skin.
If anyone knows, it's Kelmomus.
I mean, he's definitely pierced some eyeballs in the last few weeks.
he's done a lot. Be eating some eyeballs too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that whole section with Espinet at the end was pretty intense. I love that section. Even though I'm glad she made it, glad she's still kicking.
You get more Estimnet sections. But it's not over. It's not Maithanet.
I do wonder. I know we have another almost 2 books to go, but I do wonder because we're still building, right? We're still moving forward. We're still learning new things. Kind of wonder how we're going to wrap all this up. Like, how is this all going to come together at the end? I mean, just in general, like there's a lot of story to even get to, and then once we get to the climax, then how is it all going to tie together?
It's a lot of strings. There's a lot of strings around.
We have more and more strings. I wonder how it's going to, I don't know.
I'm going to remain stone-faced right here.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I think we're getting close to Gugarath. I assume that Esmenet is going to stay in Moomin to wait for the earthquake. You know,
The tsunami.
Yeah, and the tsunami. But I think that is probably where she will meet her end, if she does at all. And I mean, this book is still pretty thick, so I think I have confidence that we'll get at least some answers to some questions.
So, Katerina, I'm sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
Steve would tell you everyone's dead. Even the Synthes, right? Everyone dies.
They're all dead. Katerina, if let's say you're right and Espinet does die, is she damned?
Look, I have no idea.
If you had to guess, and I know we don't know definitely, but if you had to guess, would she be damned or would she be not?
I don't know. It's the thing is, I don't even trust Moimara when she sees herself and she sees that she's not damned. I don't necessarily trust her that that's actually the case. So, but if Moimara is not damned, but I don't know. I mean, Esmenet has also done some pretty pretty bad things. And she's been an empress for what, some 20 odd years.
Mhm.
She has made some unpopular decisions, and certainly people have died because of her.
She burnt down like a whole city because she was sad she sold her kids to that city.
Yeah.
It was her fault, so she killed everyone. That's
And
damnable.
And I think did she actually end up killing Neri, the prostitute that was hiding her in her apartment?
I took it as she did, that she had to. She was reluctant, but I thought she did.
She definitely went there, and Neri was slinking in a corner, and she was more. What did it say? After
Oh, after the yeah, it sounded like she had already had a bad day.
yeah, after the
That's not
af,
amen.
I understand
after
it.
the customs come, then the executioner comes, and that was before she even realized it was Esmenet.
I mean, she still could have let her go. We don't know.
She may have.
Um,
If she did let her go, it's going to come back to hurt her later.
What if she renames her Memara and just lets her move in?
there was one quote which I found pretty confusing. Um, and it's something that Esmenet says when she's surrounded by all these like generals and counselors, and they're all men, and she says something um, along the lines of maybe she preferred the company of whores. After all, she also married one.
Yeah.
I thought that was very strange.
Well, Kellis he's made his rounds, I guess, but or it may mean horror in a different way, like the
Fate, horror,
yeah,
horror and fate are directly like linked together in this book in parts.
Okay, that would make a lot more sense then. I mean, now that, well, I guess there were the concubines, uh, but yeah, the horror representing the fate makes a lot more sense in these circumstances.
Or maybe it's just in thought, because Kellis doesn't love her. He loves something else, and nobody knows exactly what it is. Ends to a means. It seems to be what the Dunyan love. Winning, dominating.
I don't know that they're. I mean, maybe I wouldn't describe it as love. Maybe it's more closer to desire. I don't know.
There were I forget which book it was in.
That would kind of make him a whore, right? Because you only want the physical, not the emotional. Does that make sense?
Well, that would be more. I mean, well, I would say that describes someone who visits a whore or a prostitute, rather than, I think the prostitute's probably just doing it for the money.
Yeah. There wasn't there a time when I think it was Mathanet was questioning whether Kellis, I don't know if you could say loved Espenet, but was kind of getting soft on her, like kind of. So, but I don't know. Can Kellis love anything? Does he love? Is he capable?
I'm pretty sure he says in the darkness that comes before that he is incapable of love. But I mean, that could easily change over the course of 20 years. And
No.
there is a part where in the first chapter here where he's thinking about, where he says something like, I know that the empire, or like, I know that Esmenet will not survive, Esmenet and my family will not survive without me, but can I survive without them is the question. So maybe he has become more human, but also like from reading his thoughts in this first chapter, he seems less human than ever.
I kind of wonder if that line was because would he survive if they weren't there because they have to something they have a role to play that he wouldn't succeed if they weren't there. So I wondered if it was because he loves them and he can't live without them, or it's because he needs them as a tool to achieve his goal.
I don't know.
I don't know.
To,
I'm just throwing things out.
Yeah.
that has been referenced like to a Dunyan, souls are currency, right? That's
Oh.
that's how they like control. The more souls they have, the more currency they have to work with. In what do they allude to this old battle as? The ageless war or whatever. The war for the souls. What do they call it? The Forgotten War?
It was the Forgotten War?
I can't remember right now.
I can't recall.
I've honestly no idea what you're referring to.
The battle that's been being fought since like the age of the non-men for souls.
Oh,
And then people would have forgot, but
I thought that was the Great Ordeal, wasn't it?
now the Great Ordeal is marching to fight the next arc of this war. The war has been being fought since the non-men started trying to get to the bottom, get away from as far away from the outside as they can.
Okay.
Because it's a war for souls. I just can't remember the name of it.
Didn't they call it the Nameless War?
Yeah,
Or
that
something.
sounds right. Ageless,
Okay.
nameless. It was something like that.
Same thing.
Because it had been fought for so long, they forgot the name.
I'm honestly like maybe more confused than I was before you said that.
It's the war the Synthes have, or the console got constructed to fight to close off the outside.
Okay.
To
Yeah.
get
Okay,
down
okay.
to 144,000 souls. They've been trying to do it for a long time. And from what we learned, they did it on other planets and it didn't seem to work.
Oh yeah.
It seems like they got other planets down to lower than 144,000 souls, and still they ended up having to crash into Irwa.
But have the Dunyan always been part of this war?
I think just a soul is naturally like born into the war. If you got
Okay.
a soul to wager, then you got their sides, if that makes sense. People can forget that the war was even happening, but the whole time the war's been happening.
But then, according to Kellis, Moangus and the other Dunyan would eventually side with the Inkroy in this war.
Yeah, because the Dunyan soul doesn't seem very light.
Edible.
Yeah, there we go.
That's a good way to put it. Anything else on your notes, or anything else you guys want to talk about?
No, I think I'm good. I'm more confused than I was when we started this recording. So it's probably better to leave it at that.
I think it's pretty much par for the. I mean, that's usually what happens, right? I think I'm usually I'm usually more confused or more to think about after.
That's another way of putting it.
Yeah, we're always getting some answers, but the answers are just full of questions, too. Another thing I think Baker's good at. Soon we're going to figure out what happened in Ishwal, but is that going to be like the end of the questions, or just lead to a whole other set of questions. Soon we're going to be in Golgotha. Is that going to be the end of the questions, or is that going to lead to a whole other set of questions?
A whole other set of questions.
That's usually what life does, just leaves us with more questions.
It's true. Very true. So we are doing chapters 4 through 7 for next week. Is that right? So anyone reading along, we'll be back next week. It's good to be back. I missed you guys. It was weird not talking to you for a few weeks, but glad we're back in the swing of things and discussing this series. So before you go, Daniel, where can people not get in touch with you?
At the page chewing forum or in the comments when this video gets released. I'll eventually look, and I'll eventually try to go back and look.
And Katerina?
Yeah, I've been following in Daniel's footsteps. You can't really find me anywhere anymore. But I'm still on the Patreon forum. So if you send me a message or if you tag me, I will most likely read your messages.
Yeah.
Most likely. Yeah.
I guess Steve's our outward face. Where me and Katerina hide behind the curtains. You can get a hold of Steve. He's always making a video somewhere.
Yeah, it's been busy.
Soon we're going to have 24 new videos in 24 days.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Just have to figure out a schedule for that. And I need a few weeks off. I need a little break, and then I'll start that.
You should
Yeah.
put the list on the forum somewhere, and maybe I'll try to watch some of them.
The list is there.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome for anyone you want to. We can do whatever. So yeah,
I've seen a good amount of A24 films, but not all of them for sure. Probably
There's
not
a lot.
even the best ones. I haven't
A lot of
watched
them.
Mother, and I think I need to watch that.
Yeah.
No?
I DNF though. I might give it a rewatch, but yeah, it was a tough one.
I've not seen that one.
Yeah, it was different. I might try it again. But thanks everyone for coming by, and we will see everyone next week. Chapters 4 through 7.